Hello, I'm the Sad Panda, and this is going to be a follow-up on the Bank of the Universe video I made yesterday. And on that video, I said that I was going to talk about the main issue that I have with the story, which is the Invincible Army. Even though it doesn't take a whole lot of space in the story, it is one of my biggest gripes because the way it comes to be and things like that just don't really make sense to me. So let me explain it a little bit here. So our main character, Lee Zandao, he ends up going to essentially a fire plane. And in this fire plane, there is a single flame giant protecting some treasure. And, that is, it's just interesting. But that's not what I care about. In this flame giant, he's in this, pocket dimension of, a flame dimension, essentially. And he thinks he is the strongest person ever, but he's never been outside of the flame dimension. So it kind of makes sense that he's just in his, own little pocket. He thinks he's, he thinks he's the god, thinks he's the strongest there ever was, And eventually Lee goes down and has to get this treasure and beats the giant or whatever. Later on in the story, not a whole lot later, a couple chapters, this flame giant ends up coming to Lee for a trade. And in the trade, it's just for cultivation materials and stuff like that. But what the flame giant gives in return are these little flame babies, essentially. This flame giant had 10,000 kids or something like that, from his own key or whatever, because there's no other flame giant, so it's just him. So he just used his own key to make 10,000 of himself, essentially, but they're all super, super weak, but will eventually get strong. And before this, I was talking about the Empress. She wanted to be an empress or whatever. So in order to become an empress, she needs an invincible army so she can hold on to the empress status. And so Lee doesn't have the flame giant trade yet. And he's like, okay, I'll figure out a way to get you an invincible army. I'll make you an empress. Bam. And then right after that, right after the flame giant comes with the kids, and he's like, oh, well, I can just train all these 10,000 kids and then we'll be good. We have an invincible flame giant army. And throughout this story, there's some other stuff that happens, and I'll explain it. But I said before that you can trade for anything, spirit meridians and stuff like that. He eventually gets enough spirit meridians to unlock a mountain, which is one of the things that he can do. Like I said before, he had to unlock the time chamber with one spirit meridian. The more you have, the more things you can unlock. But he unlocks a sacred library that has sentient books. These books are so powerful and so old that they gain sentience on their own. And he, luckily, he gets these dragon meridians, I'm pretty sure. And he unlocks this, and he's like, oh, cool, I found these books. I'm going to learn some stuff out of that. That's whatever. And then the Emperor stuff happens, and then the Flame Giant stuff happens. And he's like, oh, well, I'm so lucky that all of this stuff happened in the perfect, succinct way where I unlock this thing, and then I need an invincible army, and then I get a bunch of Flame Giants kids, and then I can use the sentient books to train these 10,000 giants. And at this point, it's okay, so everything just goes your way every single time. There's the issue I have with the story is that Lee doesn't have really a whole lot of trials and tribulations. Obviously his subordinates do, which is where the fun comes from, but Lee himself, as the master of the bank, seems to have no issues at all, no matter what it is. Even if it's people that are stronger than him outside of the bank, he just goes in the time chamber and gets stronger. Or the flame giants come through, and, eventually when they get trained by the Book of War, which is the book that he chooses to train them in one of the fire lands, they're an invincible army that he just has on retainer. And eventually, when they move out of the 10 lands and into the 9 skies, he just sends out his 10,000 flame army to all of the 10 lands to just reclaim all the debts. And so I don't think we're going to be going back to the 10 lands ever again. And it's it makes me upset because some of this interesting stuff that I liked was the power struggles and the dynamics with the Empress, where he's I'm going to make you my slave so I can rule over your country by proxy, or your entire kingdom by proxy. But he doesn't even have to do that. There's no point. Have some of the subordinates he takes early on get to the point where they're so weak that it literally doesn't matter because of how exponentially strong he just becomes. And it is a big bother to me because I like the story and I like the where it is now because, you know, they're in the nine skies and they're like, they have to go to heaven sky and like fight a bunch of dragons and shit. And that's really cool. And I really like that. I just don't like how quick everything happens. That's my biggest gripe with the story. And that's why I wanted to talk about the Invincible Army, because it just pretty much comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I need an army. Oh, here's my 10,000 kids. I need time and cultivation outside because I've been in this flame dimension my entire life, and I don't want my kids to just be like weak like I am, and then they trade. And I mean, I guess it makes sense because that's just like the way the story is structured. But like I said before, it's a lot of like repetitive stuff where it's like, I need something, I trade, I get it, and then I do something with it, and then that cycle repeats. And I enjoyed the story, and I'm continuing to read it, so it's not like I'm not gonna like finish it. It's just, I wish it would take its time explaining things, especially with like the 10 lands and the 9 skies. A lot of times, like I'm reading, I'm trying my best to stay focused on all of this stuff, but even then, sometimes I don't know where they are because like they're jumping around a lot, and like eventually the bank has the ability to teleport people, so I don't know where everyone is, and a lot of the characters are out doing their own stuff and we don't even talk to them, and then they just have to go on like a mission every once in a while together. And as fun as that is, I've gotten to like these characters, so I wish we could just see more of them. Like, I like the side characters in Chrysalis the same kind of way. Like, one of the most recent chapters in Chrysalis was a side character chapter where it was Bran and a couple like guards that were just trying to help the ants. And I thought that was awesome because I like to see what's happening not just with the main character and his troop, but with the outside world and what revolves around that. I enjoy the story. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm ranting about what I don't like about it because, you know, there's not a whole lot to rant about. The only thing that I really have an issue with is just like how quick it is. It's fast. And like if it was like a manga, I could kind of understand because you can see everything happening and you can see the differences in characters. But a lot of the stuff you're imagining, so you have to remember all these names and like faces that go with the names. And it also doesn't help that I'm an American and a lot of these names and stuff are in Chinese, so I just have a lot of issue like just staying on task and like figuring out what everyone's power level is because of how exponential it gets and how fast it gets. Like right now where I'm at, Lee is part of like the 10 heavenly grotto realms, and he can go up to another realm that I don't, and that's okay. So now that I've talked about the Invincible Army, I'm going to talk about what another thing that makes me upset is there's an issue that it continues to happen in the story where when they get to the max like cultivation that they know, they just say higher realm, and like I'm above that, like I'm above whatever, like I'm above heavenly grotto, but they don't know what it is. So a lot of times you're like, ooh, what is it? That's exciting, what is it? But like it just doesn't make a lot of sense because they should be able to either like instinctively know where their power stands compared to other people, or just find like somebody that is in that realm and just tell them what it is, which is what they have to do most of the time. It's just a little irritating. But the rest of the story is really great. One of my favorite interactions is Lee's and Seven's. Like, obviously, Seven is like the main, like, waifu, I guess you would say, of Lee. And Lee has like this like husband attraction with Seven, and Seven has this like wife attraction to Lee, and they go on like small dates and stuff, and it's very cute and it's nice. And it's especially nice because like Lee is at this point so much more powerful than Seven, like so much more powerful, because Seven's just a spirit that an AI spirit that lives in the bank, and Lee is a person that can go outside the bank. He can cultivate and stuff. Like he's like essentially godlike compared to Seven, but he's still like the whole idea is that Seven is supposed to be like the person that takes care of like contracts and stuff, and like that's her like job in the bank. And Seven talks about in a few chapters that the other bank masters, after they get to a certain point, they don't care about her at all, don't listen to her advice at all, and that kind of stuff. And it, like, her job is to take care of the bank and love the bank, and she does. And then when they ruin the bank, like the eighth holder ruined the bank, it could have killed her, because her life is tied to the bank and the bank is tied to her life, essentially. But since she can't die in the bank, only when the bank is like bankrupt, she will die, and she'll be gone. And it's one of like the best things about the story is like Lee's reaction to like the bank and stuff. Like when he is first transported to the bank and he hears about all his debt and stuff, and he's like, well, the bank saved my life and I own the bank now, and all this stuff was supposed to be mine, and now it's not mine because some idiot gave it away. I'm mad and I want my stuff. Like, it's one of those things where he understands that the bank is important, because like the other holders, not all of them, but some of the other like masters of the bank, they're like, oh, it's not my shit, it's not my stuff, I don't care. Like, who cares if I give away 1,000 celestial artifacts to some garbage nobody that'll probably die in 10 years? I don't care. That's not my problem. They're not my artifacts. This is just the bank stuff. I don't care about that. And then it turns out that, you know, all of these masters of the bank, they own everything in the bank. Like, Seven talks to Lee early in the story. He's like, and she tells him that, yeah, anything that you want in the bank is yours. It's your stuff. This is you, like, all of it's yours, but too bad we don't have anything because it was all given away. And he's like, well, I'm going to get my stuff back. And that's like the whole idea of the story. And I really like that, because I just really like it. Honestly, it's just really good. And that's going to be my video for today. Just me ranting a little bit of like what I don't like about the story and what I do like about the story, Seven and Lee and that kind of stuff. I really like it. And I said I was going to post a little bit about the Invincible Army and that pet peeve of mine, and I did that. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below and I'll respond to it. And if you don't like my content, leave a comment anyway, because I really want to know how to do better. I'm trying to get to 10 subscribers and we're at 7 now, so let's get it, guys.